Hello class, and welcome to this video lecture on our third lesson of World War II, the Holocaust. I think a lot of people understand some of the basic components of the Holocaust, but it's important for us to continue to teach this even to the 21st century to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. Knowledge is the supreme kind of check and balance on tyranny and on oppression and on genocide. So if we can make sure that we are always remembering what happened in the past, we can prevent these kinds of things from happening today and into the future. So we're going to take a look at this tragic event and from a historical standpoint and try to understand how we got there and what actually happened and what the ramifications were. Here we go. So the negative feelings towards the Jewish ethnic group and religion is known as anti-Semitism. Now, the Nazi anti-Semitism started with the Nazi party during the interwar years, trying to find something to hate and someone to blame for a lot of Germany's problems. Up until World War II, approximately 9 million Jews are going to be living throughout Europe. It's not going to be a small minority by any means. However, the vast majority of the ethnic group are going to live in Eastern Europe, those brownish areas that you see over to the right-hand side. You can see there that there's just over 550,000 Jews living in Germany itself, but other conquered territories by Hitler are going to have more Jews. Now, the Jewish ethnic group is directly contrary to Nazi and Hitler's idea of the master race, also known as the Aryan race. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 100% German. That's the key there, 100% German. So if you were not within that, then you were seen as inferior, and the Jews were kind of seen as the most inferior. Hitler is also going to use the Jews as kind of a scapegoat. They're going to blame the Jews for Germany losing World War I. They're going to come up with theories like, for instance, the Jews own all the banks, and the banks refuse to loan money to Germany to help win the war, and so therefore the Jews cost Germany World War I. They're also going to make up lies about how Jews didn't serve in the military because their religion doesn't allow them to do it. That's 100% false. Plenty of Jews fought in German trenches, helping defend or expand the power of Germany in World War I. So all these things are just people not being informed and Hitler taking advantage of the fact that they're not informed. Europe as a whole also is not necessarily going to be 100% okay with the Jewish population. They might not be as outright with it as Hitler is, but there is some discrimination across Europe against the Jewish population. The first real actions that Hitler and the Nazi Party are going to take are going to be known as the Nuremberg Laws. The Nuremberg Laws are a set of laws that were directed at Jews and other groups not part of the Aryan race. These Nuremberg Laws are going to limit the Jews' ability to travel, marry, vote, and even who they can date. They're going to be simple things at first. For instance, all Jews have to carry paperwork. And then after that, Jews are not allowed to leave their hometown without permission, and then they're only allowed to marry other Jews, and they're only allowed to vote on certain elections, not national elections. They're not allowed to date non-Jews. Later, in order to help the SS, the secret police of the Nazi Party, all Jews are going to be required to wear Stars of David. Certain Jews are going to be deported as well to other countries or other regions. Once the Nuremberg Laws were passed, Jews are actually going to start fleeing Germany in pretty big numbers. Close to about 150,000 are going to be leaving Germany and going to other places. Now, the problem is that most of these places that they fled to are going to be conquered by Germany in the next few years, so it doesn't really help them that much. Once the Jews that stay in Germany after the Nuremberg Laws are eventually going to be put into specialized areas known as ghettos. These are areas of cities separate from the rest of the population that house Jews and undesirables. Now, undesirables are essentially everyone and anyone who is not part of the Aryan race. These ghettos had their own factories attached to them that the Jews could work in to make more products for the German war machine. That was their only way to be employed. Um, as these ghettos became more and more crowded, and as Germany began to expand outside of its borders, more and more Jews were captured, and so specialized camps were made outside of cities and towns to house all these Jews and put them to work. Um, as the years continued on, and we're now into the late we're talking into 1940, 1941, 1942. As more and more Jews are brought into the German Empire, there's just too many of them. I firmly believe that it was always the German and the Nazi plan to eliminate the Jewish population. But at the time, they blamed on the fact that they had too many of them. So instead of them working them, they just started mass executions at first. And so this kind of just sped up the process a little bit. At first, they worked them to death, working them sometimes 20 hours a day for weeks at a time until they just dropped dead. After that wasn't killing them fast enough, concentration camps were established in which large-scale shootings took place. 100 Jews or 200 Jews at a time were marched out into the middle of the woods. They were forced to dig a trench. Now the Jews themselves thought that, well, we're just going to have to fill in the trench next because this is, worthless work. What ended up happening, though, is trucks would pull up and machine guns would open up and kill all the Jews. The Jews would fall into the holes, and then German soldiers would bury them in mass graves. Concentration camps are also going to allow for medical experiments to take place. I'm sure that you guys have heard of Dr. Mengele, and we'll talk about him more in class. Once the large-scale shootings weren't killing them fast enough and too many bullets were used, places like Auschwitz concentration camp developed specialized gas chambers and furnaces to burn the bodies and commit mass executions. It is important to realize that the Jews were not the only victims of the Holocaust. Again, if you were not part of the Aryan race, you were a potential target. If you were considered as inferior or disabled in any way as well. If you had a severe learning disability, if you had any kind of physical disability, you were also put in these camps and summarily executed. By the end of the Holocaust, over 6 million Jews will be killed, which is going to be about 2/3 of the European population. Another 5 million other people are also going to be killed because of the Nazi actions. Now, I don't want to give the rest of the world kind of a pass on this because there were some early reports that mass killings were occurring, but you kind of have to give the Allies some credit. The war started in 1939. The United States is going to get involved starting in 1941, but by that time, Hitler had conquered and taken all of Europe, and without a large-scale invasion of the continent, there was really nothing that the United States, Great Britain could do to prevent the Holocaust. So as they were planning, as they were trying to put together their idea for what an invasion of Europe would look like, these executions, this genocide is occurring. 1942, we start hearing about the mass killings, but there's nothing really can do about it. By 1944, we are actually marching through conquered territory and liberating camps, and we'll watch some videos about what that looks like. Once we kind of see what actually happens here, it puts a real name and face to the horror that was Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. These are the kinds of images we kind of see today, and we realize how awful Hitler was and the Nazi Party. It's hard to separate those two from each other. Once these images come back and once the U.S. soldiers kind of see these things, they are 100% convinced that Hitler must be eliminated as soon as possible. The Nazi idea of anti-Semitism, the Nazi idea of the Aryan race must be eliminated from the world. With that, our video is done for today. Make sure that you take your quiz, and I will see everyone tomorrow.